All right, welcome to Citizens Forum on Sapiensia's channel. I'm Joe Man, so nice to be here with you today. Of course, today on Citizens Forum, let's begin with a rundown of some of the major things that we tracked this week in the news. We'll begin with what's going on today. Yesterday, Nigerian Labour Congress did announce a two-day protest to begin February 27th and 28th. And this protest is actually to protest hardship in the country. Like we said on this platform, organized labor have in the times past mobilized and demobilized. We look forward to see how this one plays out. Well, still concerning hardship in the country, we did see Nigerians, especially in Benue State, complain about a sudden increase in the price of cement. Now, the sudden increase was from 5,500 to, in some areas, they say as high as 8,500. In some areas, we've also heard people come in and talk about 9,000 naira. Now, they say this is unacceptable. And also, judging from the fact that they say most of the resources used for the materials used to produce cement are sourced by these companies locally. They think there is just no need for that. Still on economic hardship in the country, within the week, we saw an increase in the number of voices calling on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to act. The Sultan of Sokoto once again has lent his voice to that call. When he had a meeting with the Northern Traditional Rulers Council, they redoubled their call on Mr. President to do something about the youth unemployment in the country, to do something about insecurity in the country, because as they say, they can't specify the youths anymore, that they have been doing their best to pacify the youth, but it is getting to that time when the youths can be pacified. And so economic opportunities and everything that will ensure that the livelihood of Nigerians and the welfare of Nigerians is priority should be done. We saw the Nigerian Bar Association, the NBA, also do this. The PDP, Labour Party, also joined in this call, even though once again there was another back and forth between the APC and the PDP whenever the PDP calls attention to the hardship in the country on the part of the ruling APC. We also saw the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria raise the same concern about hardship in the country. While the Sultan talked about Nigeria sitting on a keg of gunpowder, we saw the Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria talk about Nigeria being sick and sick in ICU, intensive care unit, and on life support. So all of the calls around the country is tailored towards one thing, and while organized labor on the one hand also joined in that. Well, no sooner had this happened before we saw something happen, and I like to refer to that as a clash between the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Mr. Shettima, in response to what the government will do to ensure that the hardship Nigerians face is a thing of the past. We saw Alhaji Shettima promise Nigerians that they were going to set up, the federal government was going to set up a commodity board that would ensure prices are regulated and grains especially is available to Nigerians all over. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, rising up in the meeting with the 36 state governors, said that is one thing this administration will not do. How is it possible that two men who are saddled with the responsibility, don't they sit down to have a conversation? Are they not on the same boat? Are they not on the same ship? That's clear, marked difference between the opinion on the vice president and Mr. President himself really says a lot and leaves a lot to be desired. So, sitting with the 36 state governors in response to the calls around the country for this administration to handle the hardship Nigerians face. Of course, the PDP likened our economy to that of Venezuela, something the APC did not take lightly. Mr. President has talked about some things he thinks should be done right now. One of them is policing. And they are talking about tinkering with the idea of state police to ensure there is security so farmers can go back to farm. That is one of the things they talked about. Another thing they did talk about was setting up a task force And to this end, he has ordered the IGP, the Inspector General of Police, the NSA, the National Security Advisor, the DSS, to working in unison, ensure that any Nigerian found hoarding grains or foodstuffs around the country is dealt with and the commodity confiscated. That is another thing they say is going to be done. But one thing this administration has insisted is that it will not import foodstuffs into the country because, as they say, Nigeria has not just enough to feed herself, but enough to be a net exporter of these products. So as it has to do with economic hardship in the country, this is the response from the federal government. Another thing that happened within the week was the federal government, it's now very clear that the federal government is finalizing plans, as some of my good friends will say, to increase electricity tariff or price we pay for electricity. And the Minister of Power has pointed out that much, that Nigeria is paying too much for subsidy of electricity. The federal government has also said same thing. Nigeria is paying too much for electricity subsidy. While economists and analysts will differ, and we will take time enough, we will have enough time to have this conversation around who is subsidizing who when it comes to electricity in Nigeria. As it is, many people think Nigerians are simply paying for darkness. For how many days, weeks now, across Nigeria, the issue of power outage is a problem. So that is another thing that happened within the week. Another thing that happened within the week is in the Labour Party. The Labour Party seemed to be having its own share of internal crisis. The opening salvo was shot by the National Treasurer, Oluchi Okpara, who accused Julius Abari, the national chairman of the party, of corruption to the tune of 3.5 billion naira. An allegation not only has the chairman denied, but Oluchi herself has been suspended for 6 months for leveling such accusations on the chairman. To that backdrop, we did see the fundraising team for Obidati campaign come out to reel out figures of how much it collected, how much it spent. And they talked about 774,500,000 was spent on litigation post-election when Mr. P2B challenged INEC and the APC. Right, and they also talked about they received 596 million naira in donations, while 800 million naira came from Mr. P2B. Mr. P2B himself is okay with this report because some people who tried to allege corruption on the part of that organization, he made it clear that himself, people have come to meet him and told him they tried to give Aisha Yusufu specifically money in cash, and she said no, pay it into the account. And so the only account that campaign run, that fundraising run, were known, and it's in the bank, and it's as transparent as can be. But Mr. P2B, on the back of this allegation, has called for external audit of the Labour Party account. So that is another thing that happened within the week. Well, the federal government has finally dropped every charge leveled against Omoyele Sowore, the convener of Revolution Now, himself perennial presidential candidate in the election. He is happy for this, but he has also said the government should apologize to him because it was a wild goose chase the government carried out then. The AGF Lateef Fagbemi officially has dropped all of those charges written to the court, and the court has received that letter. The National Assembly also, within the week, the House of Representatives began moves to return Nigeria to a parliamentary system of government. So many people remember fondly that between the years of 1960 and 1966, that seemed to be the only time Nigeria truly worked. And that was because it wasn't a unitary system like we have today. It was a the parliamentary system we were running. Getting back to democracy, we adopted the presidential system. That idea that Nigeria cannot work properly, cannot function maximally if we run her centrally from Abuja, but we have healthy regions who not only compete amongst themselves, but use their resources have their unique challenges and deploy these resources to solve their unique problems, and then remit whatever will be agreed to the federal government. But then they are proposing that this begins sometime in 2031. That also happened within the week. Professor Moji Adeyeye has been reappointed, was also reappointed this week by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. She continues as the DG of NAFDAC. Don't forget, controversial move recently where NAFDAC banned the production, manufacture, distribution, and sale, and of course, indeed, consumption of alcohol in sachets and little bottles of 200 milliliters and below. That has been controversial, and many people have called for her sack or even outright resignations. But going away from all of this, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu found it worthy that she be reappointed. And then finally, another thing that we saw play out within the week was the former SGF, Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, testifying in court that $6.2 million was withdrawn using Buhari's forged signature. Buhari's signature was actually forged to withdraw this money, and it was said to be deployed to foreign observers to take care of foreign observers. Interestingly, one Jubril was said to be the one who received that money on behalf of the SGF. But the SGF gave lots of reasons why that document is a forged one, and he is not aware of that transaction, from the outright fact that this signature is clearly a weak attempt to duplicate Buhari's signature, to also talking about the seal needing no reference number, but that letter did, and a host of other things. For instance, there was this part where he talked about that Mr. President never said all through his time, he is his employer, and so never at any time said, accept my highest regard. He never did all of those things. So that was also something that played out within the week. Today on Citizens Forum, we'll head straight to the main topic for today. The main topic for today is a move started from Niger State, but seems to be creeping, especially in northern Nigeria, about states that offer thinking of some kind of protection for their foodstuff, saying it is going to be the solution to the problem they face of hunger in the land. We'll take this short break. I'll try to connect my guests, and when we get back, the program continues. Jude German, Citizens Forum, Sapiencia.